This is Lauren with Salted Pages. I am a dog lover, very much an ocean person, and someone who loves to travel and lives currently a pescatarian lifestyle. I run an SEO copywriting company that specializes in, of course, your words, but the words that will help people find you, connect with you, and just continue to be a part of your world in the impact that you're making. So, most of the time, entrepreneurs will hire us to help them get found on Google, but then also to write the content that leads the strategy and the creative direction, but also the impact of their website. So, yes, we deliver headlines, paragraphs, and calls to action, but we deliver results, helping you truly just make waves with your business. So, that's me in a nutshell.
Ugh, I'm so glad we're sitting down today because every time we chat storytelling, lived experiences, human experience, tech, I always feel so refreshed and I'm just excited to chat today. So let's get into it. I've been dying to know where you've been lately because, travel and lived experience is such a part of your salted ethos. And with your husband being a pilot too, now you guys are
Yes.
always jetting around.
It's an interesting lifestyle for sure because I work from home. I'm here in my office. I'm with the dog. Sometimes I'm like not even running into a real human being for like a couple of days unless I force myself to go and like take a workout class or go meet up with
Yeah.
a friend. So travel for me, it's like this like life of opposites where I'm either just like a big homebody, I'm working, I'm just like grinding away and in the creative flow versus, okay, I'm hopping on a plane, I'm going like not as far away as possible, but it feels that way. And then just, it's like a flip of a switch for me. And it just like resets. It allows me to feel more connected, less isolated. So I'm trying to think of like where we've been recently. We were in Colorado recently. We did Italy for my birthday, which is like such a little treat. So
Oh my God.
honestly, yeah, and we did the south of France back in May. We did a vow renewal because we tell so many stories about weddings and marriage and celebration that when we hit our 10-year wedding anniversary, it was like, this sounds like something that could be meaningful, and it really was. So definitely a big highlight of travel this year for me.
Ugh, and it looked like just pure art. Like could feel the intention and just all the curation around the experience and how you wanted your people to feel and just going all in on that celebration. So,
It was a
oh
total
my
creative
gosh.
process. Like, I would work with Salted Pages during the day, and then it was like a second job, and then at night, I would, like, design the little menus for our outside dinner, our al fresco dinner that we had, or, oh my goodness, I put together fashion boards for my family, and that's common, like,
Yeah.
for maybe, like, a wedding, there'll be, like, a little color palette, but I went overboard, and my family kind of hated me for it because I gave them, like, a color board and, like, should it be like cocktail vibes or like more formal? Is it beach casual? And then gave them like a whole set of like outfit inspo for every event of the 4-day celebration. So yeah, that was kind of funny. I think they realized how intentional creative but also type A that I can be. But hey, they're my family and my best of friends. There was only like 20 people. So they went with it. And I'm so grateful to them for it because it did help just as a collective. Even if things were messy, we looked great. So that was a bonus.
Well, I'm in the same process because I'm newly
Yeah.
engaged at planning. Yeah, and I have already the wedding website was the first thing I did. Like before we started looking at venues, I literally built the website and started putting together the board for the outfits of like what does mountain chic mean? Here's the color palette, here's the dress length and the
I wanna be a
inspo.
fly on the wall for your wedding. Oh my gosh. Fun fact, when I used to tell people like, "Oh, I'm a copywriter and I work with a lot of, like, wedding businesses," they used to think that I would be a wedding website writer. Like, "Oh, are you helping people create the content for their own wedding websites?" And I
Oh
was
my
like, "I mean,
gosh.
I could, but I don't think that's, like, on the budget list for couples."
I know. Like, I have dreamed of making wedding websites since I started doing this. Like, I just
Oh, I
always
bet
thought
yours
that'd be so fun.
is yours custom? Did you do it and show it, or
Yeah, I did it and
did
show
you
it. I
oh my
did start
gosh,
from a
Amy,
template because we gotta be efficient. Like, we can't just go down the rabbit hole too much.
custom
But
design.
yeah.
Did you build a custom brand?
Not
for
yet. Like,
okay,
I'll admit, I
coming?
haven't even chosen the font yet, but the layout is there, the feeling is there. Yeah, we're getting there.
Okay, I'm just obsessed, that's incredible. Now I'm like, "Oh, I need a website for" I have so many websites that I've, like, yet to build for my, like, other business ideas that I don't have time for, so I
Mm,
feel like a wedding website is just another iteration of that, but hey, a real
yeah,
thing that you get to go and, like, get married based off of, so that's incredible.
yeah. I mean, with yeah, with all those ideas swirling in your head, like, what pulled you towards writing as a career?
It was one of those things where I honestly enjoyed most of the subjects in school. I was very much an achiever personality. I was the youngest in my family. So I had all these expectations of the siblings before me of what they have executed and accomplished. And then, so I grow up among that, surrounded by this just big, loud family. And I really just loved the writing side of things, and it's not like I sat in English class and was like, "Oh, I can't wait to learn about grammar," but there was just something about, like, learning the rules, but then having this opportunity for creative expression that was really powerful, and it's also just one of those things that I kind of just, like, picked it, but also fell into it. So when I went to college, I studied journalism. So I was like, okay, I took this class in high school, and for some reason, I loved the day that we learned about headline writing. Like, that still is
Ooh.
one of the classes I could almost remember what I was wearing. I remember, like, one of the good friends that I was sitting with and, like, workshopping. I think it was fun. They had those, like, projectors where you, like, put the thing down flat and then it, like, projects it back up on the screen through the light. So I had one of those projectors that I'm looking at, and we're learning about headlines and how to shorten things. And this is more for journalism, but I think I enjoyed that experience so much. I was a yearbook editor in high school, right? So I was constantly kind of in these spaces with words and people and stories. And so then when it came time to declare a major, I picked journalism. And a lot of my friends were unsure, changing their mind after the first year. But for me, I was like, this feels right. I enjoy this. I feel creatively challenged. I feel like there's so much of like an ethics side of it too that I really enjoyed, that it was just honesty. It wasn't fiction writing, right? It was, really meeting people, telling the truth, and almost having to remove your own. You can have a voice, but you have to remove your own bias from it.
Mhm.
And so learning that was really, really cool. And then I fell into it in the sense that while I was in school, other businesses enjoyed that I was digitally savvy, but that I could also write. And that plays into so many things from social media management to blog writing to website copy. And then, lo and behold, here we are, focusing really on the copywriting side of things.
Yeah, and I mean, such an interesting blend of the tech, the structure, and then that really human, like, more poetic, reflective side of the writing. Like, I feel like so many people have come to me in the past, maybe misunderstanding the copy design process of,
Mm.
well, what can you build? What can you make for me, craft out of nothing to, connect with my people? And it's really not about that. It's about that reflection and, leaning into what's most true.
Yeah, it's not crafting from nothing, or even for us, like we say we start with a blank page, but it's like, no, there's a whole human here and a whole history of like experiences and stories and meaning and values. And the more we do it, there's people that we run into that are like, oh, you've done this hundreds of times. Like, surely you must get bored, or surely you must feel like you're telling the same story over and over again. And to me, I'm like, no, like every single person is different. Like, even if they have the exact same job and the exact same location, maybe they even work with the same people all the time, they still have their own direct individual human experience. And by listening and paying attention to that and bringing that into the work, it makes it different every single time. And it's gives me goosebumps like talking about it.
I know, how lucky are we that we get to serve people and reflect, yeah, their experience back to them and help them connect with the people they're meant to serve.
Mhm.
Like,
I know.
yeah.
It's one of those things that I just find so fascinating and powerful. And it also kind of like reinstills to me what's important. I think I can get kind of really caught up in, okay, like achieve and execute and accomplish and like create work that you're proud of. But along the way, meeting people who like they have their own strengths and weaknesses and their own purpose behind everything. And I have to kind of remind myself, and talking with them often is the reminder for me of why I do what I do, right? It's the people. Sometimes it's hard because it is so digital. I was thinking last night in preparation for this conversation, I'm like, the AI versus the human experience and the online world and all of the different overlaps there. And I'm trying to think of the best way to say it, but basically, I'm like, sometimes I'm hired and I only work with people in a digital space and I only create a digital result for them. And you could say, how's that much different from like the ChatGPT side or just like working with a computer? But then I think about the projects where I've ended up meeting the clients in person, sometimes on purpose, right? Like we plan a trip, we meet up, other times on accident where we happen to both be at the same event and it feels like an old friend and it makes this sometimes overwhelming, really large world feel so small and intimate and personal. And it feels like you're seen. So for me, that's been a really amazing ripple effect. And again, that reminder of, okay, this is still like real people that we're working with, real impacts. One example is like my brand photographer. He was my client first, right? Like he hired us for website copy. We told a story. We talked on and off for a very long time for a couple of years. And then we met in person for my brand photo shoot in DC. And the hair and makeup artist thought that we had known each other like in person. In the way that we greeted each other, the way that we talked about each other and to each other. She was like, wait, that was the first time that you met. So to me, it's results like that where it's like perfect. And that's what we do with Salted Pages, right? Like most of these business owners, their clients and their customers that are coming to their websites and reading their content, that's their first impression. And it's very much digital, right? It's online. But when it connects and serves as a channel to the real world experience that is hopefully the bulk of our lives, that is where the magic is at.
Oh, yeah. And man, yeah, that's such a rewarding experience to be able to have such deep connection virtually and then to celebrate in person. Like, I remember
Hmm.
one of my clients was just here in Montana recently too, and she came over to meet up for the first time and meet the horses.
Of
And
course.
I was going down to get the door because I heard the truck pull up. And she just opened the door, came right into my house, and gave me the biggest hug, like without waiting for the door to be answered. And I was like, I love this. And I think I said to her, like, you're real, because you see them in person for the first time. But yeah, I feel like sometimes I'm doing these like world tours. Like I'll end up on the
Hmm.
East Coast to visit my family and I'll see how many clients I can visit,
Right?
while I'm there in that part of the world. And it's just so fun to be able to, build the foundation for that relationship so deeply
Hmm.
ahead of time.
Do
And you guys do so many fun things too. Like when you sent me those little salted caramels as a little welcome gift when we started working together, like you really bring everything off screen too.
Thank you. We try. I'm like, I tell my clients, I'm like, we really want to like minimize the amount of like work that you're having to do. I had one call yesterday where the client was just like, I just want to be able to put more into the creative side and put less into the admin, the marketing, the sales, the cups and spaces that he doesn't enjoy. I did want to ask with that client that walked into your
Oh,
house,
yeah.
knowing her, like, was that kind of like, oh my gosh, you would do that like through like your brand process after she did that?
Yes.
Was it like, I should have
Yeah.
known?
Oh, yeah. She's incredibly, like, intimate with her own clients and the way, like, she holds space for them and throughout our process. Yeah, it just made so much sense.
You're
So,
like, you would do that. That makes
yeah.
sense.
Um, yeah, and, like, so when you're helping people through all this deep work of kinda excavating how they wanna be seen in the world, and you're doing this remotely so often, how do you what's your favorite way to balance that human side and helping them feel safe and seen in the process?
Mm, balancing the human side. I
Yeah.
think for us, we have a really intentional process that we built like a bit, I wouldn't say trial and error, but mostly just listening and realizing, you know what, we don't want to ask for same day feedback from this client because that's stressful for them. I used to even have, I can't believe it thinking about it now, but we used to have live feedback sessions where I would basically like pitch them their brand statement on a like live video call and we would read it together. And there were some things that I learned from that, but for the most part, I learned like I kind of dreaded a little bit that experience. There's a lot of pressure that was on it. And I think the client felt stressed having to like read copy through a video call and me trying to like transcribe it to them. And so we just realized, okay, that's not it. So lots of just listening and paying attention to how we felt, but also like the way that our clients reacted and the ways that they communicated, even things like reminders. Like, I think the biggest thing that like copywriters, web designers, brand designers deal with is keeping projects on time. And so we've learned that with our reminders, instead of saying like, hey, your form is late, instead, we have a buffer week in the process where technically they have a whole week to be late that they don't know is there, that we've built in just for peace of mind to where we can go, you know what? We can tell that you like are working on this, but you need a little bit more time. Take another 3, 4 days. No worries at all. So that's one thing that we've done. And then B, when we send reminders, we think about like what is the emotional reaction we want to create when like they read and like see this email. So again, less of like this is late and more of hey, like your project's a priority. It's about like we're ready to begin. We're so excited. We have so many ideas and we don't want to delay that. We don't want to push that back. And we know that you hired us to create a result. And that result, while we don't want to rush it, we do want it to come sooner rather than later. And so just reminding them of the why and creating like a better feeling within those email reminders, that allows us to just better balance the human side of things. And then C, along with that, is we have kind of like a philosophy of transparency. Like if we don't know what's going on, we don't know how we can help you. So we try to create a really safe environment where if like their kids got sick or they had a family emergency, where they feel comfortable, whether or not they tell us the whole story or just hint at it, they feel comfortable to say like real life is happening right now and I don't have the time and mental space to work on this at the present moment. And that gives us the opportunity to say, okay, we're not going to be as timeline oriented right now. We're going to give you this space. And I often will say, don't even reply to this email, right? Like I'm giving them the permission to just focus on what they need to do because that at the end of the day is the most important thing. So those are a couple of ways that we really try to make sure that while there is a digital experience, it's really in line with their human life.
Yeah, and what a beautiful, like, opportunity for relief when things are pulling us so many directions and
Mhm.
entrepreneurship is running us like crazy. Even if we love, every minute of it, we're still waking up in the middle of the night with ideas, and
Oh
then
my
some
gosh.
folks have their children and their families they're caring for and all the things, so, yeah, it truly does just all add up, and that's so beautiful that it's built in to have that space to really make this such
Yeah,
a supportive process, because it's hard.
exactly.
It
Well,
can
and
be
some people,
hard.
like, when they first start out, they're like, "Oh, I want it tomorrow." And I'm like, "Okay, but then are you ready tomorrow to approve things, to
Yes.
collaborate, to be involved?" In fact, we have rarely, like, fired or, parted ways with a client, but one of the times that we did is when she asked us to make it up. She didn't wanna fill out questionnaires, she wasn't scheduling her kickoff call, and she was like, "Just make it up." She knew that we were familiar with her industry, but I was like, "This
Cool.
is where am I supposed to pull from?" I've not even met you in person, so we did part ways in that scenario, and I don't regret it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's crazy because same here, like, I could just make design out of nowhere, right? Like,
Yeah, you can
I'm
make
sure
something beautiful,
you
sure.
yeah, and I'm sure you chase, like, creative writing in your own way and, like I do with passion projects when I, just wanna design something for fun, outside of a client,
Yeah,
requirement scope, but who is that serving if you're doing that for a client with a living, breathing business, living, breathing clients and customers of their own, when all this is just meant for deep, honest connection?
exactly. I'm like,
So,
if I wanted to make it up, I'll write templated copy, which is fun in
yeah,
its own
yeah,
way, but, like, then I get the full creative expression and
yeah.
scope, like you said, outside of someone's requirements, where I knew she was still going to have requirements. Revisions, could you imagine, like, not having a true strategic direction or kickoff? Like, imagine the revisions with that. So I was like, I'm just gonna save us both, some
Yes.
hassle,
Yeah.
and if you want someone who's just gonna take it same day and do it, and now with, like, ChatGPT, like an AI, she's probably, already gone and run off into the wind, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
You do what you need to do, and we'll do what we wanna do and think is best for our clients, and I am happy to stay in that lane.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you see any other misconceptions about copywriting or SEO, timing that,
Mm.
creatives and founders come to you with?
I mean, timing's definitely a big one, right? Like copy or design, SEO, when and where and how should all of that take place? Our answer there, which I know you and I have had conversations about, is typically we can accomplish the like SEO and copywriting piece at the same time that maybe like the branding is getting designed. And then both of those are done in time for it to all be implemented into the website. I think some people, another timing issue that we see is they think that the copy will be done like, they kind of forget their piece, right? Like, "Okay, awesome, I'm handing it off, I'm outsourcing it," but don't forget, like, you also need to submit revisions, and that takes time. You need maybe, like, a good morning where there's not a lot going on, you have some focus. So I think that's a piece that people forget. They want it immediately, but they forget that they also have to make time in their schedule. So we just make sure to communicate very early on what we want from them, why it's important, and then also just give them time, right? We give our clients 7 days for each round of revisions. And then misconceptions for like AI, copy, things of that nature. It's honestly all still so new that I think a
Mm.
big conception is that there's such a thing as like AI experts. I think that is an unfair and inaccurate label just because it's so new. Sure, you could be someone who is staying up to date on it. I think you're more of like a news reporter than an expert when it comes to AI. Sure, you can be aware of all the trends and tell people about it and like announce it, but to say that like you know all the ins and outs when no one knows except for even the creators, they don't know the consequences of it. So that
Yeah.
is a big misconception that I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, that is such a good point that there's so many unknowns. And I think, I saw someone chatting about this online, mentioning just to folks to be wary of AI
Mhm.
solutions being sold to them, right? Because there's so many unknowns and just the opportunity for folks to capitalize that on that and
Yeah.
say, "Oh, here's this great solution," and just lean into, like, the momentum and the interest maybe in that space and say something like, "Oh, yeah, you're gonna get, this whole AI copywriter on your team with this app and it only costs this or, what have you, just, making up a scenario here and selling it as, the best next tool for entrepreneurs. Where are those claims coming from? What even is
Right.
this? And so just that really due diligence for folks to really get to know the person or the brand behind what they're leaning into and where they're putting their energy and investment in so many ways, not just money, but their time, the years they spent building their brand, the love they've poured into their business until now. Like, what are they outsourcing that to?
I know.
So,
It honestly reminds me of the client who said, "Just make it up." Because
mhm.
like, I think of like, newsletter platforms or even like your email where it's like, "Use AI to write this headline or write this," but like, what is it pulling from? Like, have they actually, like, asked you questions and better understood you? Or are you just putting in like, "Let's talk about branding," and then it just takes it and it runs. So I think that's
Yeah.
where you have to be careful. Like you do need to be mindful of like what input it's asking for from you in the first place and whether or not that input is strategic. I kind of think of just how our clients often tell me like, "Wow, Lauren, that's such a good question," right? Like they might come to me
Yeah.
with questions or with a need, but oftentimes it's through my questions and the things that I'm kind of pushing back on them for that self-reflection. That's like where we really create the strategy and find the meeting and find the differentiators that help their business be effective and be successful. And right now, I think a lot of people have like been calling ChatGPT like a yes man because it's just saying like,
Mhm.
yes, that's it. Yes, you're great. Yes, your photographs are the best in the world. And it's like, okay, so, like, that's where, like, our whole concept of, like, grain of salt comes in with Salted Pages is the element of, "Okay, but have you considered this?" Or, "Let's think about that in a different way, and we're not going to, like, throw salt at you." It's just more of, like, how can we really reconsider this, challenge this, and really weigh out the pros and cons? Like, when we have revisions, we don't just say, like, "Yes, you've got it. Yes, ma'am." We say, "Yes, but have you considered this?" Or if we do
Yes.
that, what is the impact? Like, what is truly, like, the benefit and maybe the negative consequence of this kind of language? So, it's all of that kind of mulling and strategizing, but in a fun, reflective, human way that not only makes the experience enjoyable as you're working on it, but then it makes the results more impactful
Oh, yeah.
as you know.
Yeah, it's this whole cycle of always circling back to what's the story and strategy behind this versus just continually just moving forward prompt after prompt, say. in just such a linear way. Like for me, it's always just coming back to that foundation and what are we trying to do here? Who are we trying to connect with? What's the deeper story and emotions under all this?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And that's where I kind of go back and forth on like AI and ChatGPT. I think it's just a matter of what do you need out of this, but also like is that time spent getting that result in that little chat box, is that time like is that a valuable spend of your time? Right? Like I know for me, I would rather go and just like have a conversation with a friend and just really like think things out, reflect, get challenged a little bit. And I actually think that the biggest problem is that we're expecting there to be the right answer. Like when you go to
mhm,
ChatGPT, I think people are excited right now, or even if you Google something, it gives you like that one result, that one little summary there at the top. But like in most things, and especially with business strategy, like there's not just one answer. And I think that part has been driving me crazy lately because we're wanting easy. We're
yeah,
wanting life to be simple. And while we can simplify things and try to really live like an intentional lifestyle, when you boil it down, like it is so complex and oftentimes unexpected. And I think we forget that when these tools become like the next shiny thing to help you and to help your business, that there's not just one answer. And oftentimes it's in the messy middle where we find those answers. And then they change too. So
mhm.
I could go on, but that's my rant of the
Yeah,
day.
no, I'm with that 100%.
Ugh,
And I also feel there's something so draining, like, if I stay in chat too long, if I'm using AI to, hone in on what's my next best action item or, organize all my thoughts. If I'm outsourcing some of that strategizing and planning and thought process, I'm just doing more and more and more, and my energy goes down, like, I'm taking away that white space, like, that
mm,
breathing room in between tasks or in between, so I can critically think, and I just that's not a pattern I wanna get into myself. I really want that breathing room, and I don't wanna outsource a lot of these tasks, but yeah.
I agree. I agree. We honestly don't use it for very much at all. Like we found it to be helpful to like let's say we read through a questionnaire and then, maybe it can summarize that for us. Just give us like a reminder 3
Yeah.
days later when I'm like, okay, what did that really contain in it? But usually the summaries aren't as helpful for me as reading like direct voices
Yep.
from people and like the stream of consciousness thoughts. To me, that is where it's interesting, it's captivating, it's relatable. And I think especially as AI continues to be this like echo chamber of like AI using AI to create AI content. The more important it is for like the human content to be more raw, less perfect, less scripted, because that's where we're like, oh, I relate to that. I get that. It feels like a conversation. It feels like something I want to just jump right into, eat right up. I don't know if you've ever like sat down in the middle. Of course you have like sat down in the middle of a dinner table and you're in between two like conversations and you're like, and it's the one where they're just not overthinking it. They're just having these like honest conversations. Maybe they're talking about childhood stories or they're talking about this like modern hot political topic that happened yesterday. But like either way, it's like, okay, that's fascinating. Versus the other side where they're all like, yeah, so this morning I woke up and made the perfect latte. I don't know, maybe I wanna know her recipe, but otherwise I'm like, "Let me hear the childhood stories." Like, this is where I'm leaning.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it'll be that way, at least for those of us who are a little more nostalgic and sentimental. That'll be the kind of content that continues to catch eyes and stand out, but who knows? We'll see. That's where I'll be.
I mean, and that's the whole thing is that as much as AI learns and as strategic as it can be and as much as it can duplicate, what humans have set out for communication patterns and different things, it's never going to know heartbreak or big leaps or true passion or celebration and these really human experiences that come from places like the chatty dinner table or taking a big leap in your business and these things that shape us. And so when it's creating, how deeply can it connect when it's
Mm,
just generating?
right,
That's my take.
right. Well, and at the end of the day, like, at some point, hopefully, we're all logging off, disconnecting, like, enjoying a good meal, sitting down next to a friend, like, going on a walk with your dog, going paddleboard, yoga, mountain, like horseback riding for you, that's something that like, yes, and this almost is almost like contradictory to like what I do for a living, but there are some things that as well and as beautifully and tangibly that we can describe it to actually experience it. It's like reading a
Yeah.
travel magazine versus actually taking the trip and being in that location. You can't you can't beat that. And so
Yeah.
that for me is what I have to remember is that like there is still this real literal experience that currently the world is still like we're not plugged in that much yet that we're living, and that's what it's for. We're using these all as mediums and as channels and as ways to maybe feel connected and feel belonging and share and create and grow business, but at the end of the day, like be with our people and to live a life that one day will end. Like there's only so much time we have. So what can we do to soak it all up?
Yeah. And I love how you said at one point, maybe this is in your website copy, that you can't tell the stories of others unless you've
Mm,
fully lived your own.
yeah.
Like, what a beautiful perspective to bring to all that.
Honestly, that's there almost like as a reminder for me. It's like, don't just get caught up, like, because I can get a little bit like excited and consumed by a client, like, oh, you like these kind of movies and this kind of music, and you like to do this as a hobby. And I'll kind of experiment and like try on those shoes and go do those things to better understand them and what matters to them. But then I also have to remember that like I need to disconnect from that and remember like myself and my values and who I am like away from all of that. And oftentimes it does overlap, right? Like one of my favorite things that I do now is go and take a Pilates class, which is so like unlike me. Like normally I'm at home, I'm doing my little yoga and I'm walking the dog and that's the limit of it. But one of our clients, she was like raving about it so much. And then my friend suggested it and then we went. But it's been like a saving grace for me. So it's interesting because there's this overlap of I have to live my own life and do my own things, but then I'm influenced by my clients and the stories they tell me and like what matters to them. But then it can make my life like more meaningful. Like I think without that class, I would have had I've already had a hard summer, but it would have been a much more challenging summer to not be able to like force myself off the laptop, go move my body, strengthen myself, therefore strengthen like how I'm feeling in that moment. So anyways, yeah, but living my own life to then better tell the stories of others, that really just comes down to the human experience and really feeling it for myself. Otherwise, how can I ever describe it for someone else if I'm so plugged in that I don't know what it's like to take that trip to be in Italy?
Yeah. Man, I love putting myself in my clients' worlds though too. Like
Ugh,
you said,
right?
it's like
It's hard
yeah.
not to.
No, like with Deja Revel Boudoir, that was the first client that I made a playlist for. Just I was all in on the world she was building, and I was like, "This needs more texture. This needs another sensory experience." And since then, like now I create them and I ask in my client questionnaire for a couple songs of, what someone, feels when they think about their brand from that audio perspective, just to get me started on, their vibe and what they're thinking. And then I make a playlist that plays on repeat for the whole project and usually afterwards as well, just so I can be fully in their world, you know? Mm.
I adore that. I actually have one for Salted Pages that I'll put on when I'm working on like website updates or new copy, or like every year we'll have like a goal setting meeting. So like I'll put that on, listen to it, let it be the soundtrack. We've had a couple of shared projects where I'm like, Amy, can you send me the playlist? And then I listen to it too for their copywriting. So it's definitely influenced and bled over into what we do too. So
Well,
thank you
then
for that.
yeah, you gotta get a new one today then, because that brand delivery
Yes.
that went out yesterday, yeah, I gotta make sure I send you that playlist for
Perfect.
this
I actually
one.
was going to ask, I'm like, do you have one for her?
Yep.
Because we're wrapping up and I want to listen to it while I edit.
When she sent me the first couple songs, I was just like, "Am I going to cry this entire project?" Like, it is some good stuff.
Okay.
Iris by Goo Goo Dolls is on there mixed
Mm,
with some very emotive romantic wedding songs, and
yes.
I'm all in.
Okay. All right. I see it. That makes sense for
Yeah.
her.
Some throwbacks, some artful songs, yeah.
Oh, incredible. Thank you. I can't wait.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm still working on the flavor piece. Like, you have
Mm.
that so clearly, again, with those salted caramels you sent in the mail. I gotta think about Unbridled too, what
Oh,
that taste sense is.
yeah,
I'm
that's
so
hard.
enjoying.
It's so easy
Yeah.
with salt. I like every salted caramel, salted ice cream, like,
Yeah.
we've got it pretty well covered there with Unbridled Form. Okay, quick brainstorming session. Hmm. I almost feel like it needs to be something like I almost think of like the bridles I don't like the word stringy. I don't like the way that that paints a picture in my head, but like something like Twizzlers, but not Twizzlers. I don't think that's the taste.
Interesting. Well, I was thinking, like,
Fudge?
maybe well, that's definitely on brand for Amy as a human, 100%. I was almost thinking maybe some, like, wild berry, you know,
Oh,
because it's, yeah, sweet, in nature.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of fig, like a fig jam.
Yes.
I think that could be, and then like homemade bread, like a homemade bread recipe. I don't know, maybe that's too trendy, but
Oh my god, no, I could mess with some baguette and fig jam on a charcuterie board.
and maybe like a fancy butter, like a rosemary butter is like a thing that
Mm,
like I saw, like I can taste it talking
yeah.
about it, and I think rosemary feels very like woody.
Mm.
That could
I
be
love
that's
this
I'm like,
brainstorming
sign me
session.
up. I would like a new brand and some rosemary, fig, whatever.
Oh my god, well, this is so funny. I'll have to credit you if I do this, but I'm planning, like, an al fresco evening in the horse pasture for, like, a charcuterie board kinda garden party night for some folks here in Bozeman, and those things might end up on the plates.
I might end
Yeah.
up in town that week. You gotta be careful what you tell me. I'm like, I
Yeah.
will fly there. I
Oh my
almost
gosh.
flew to Montana for this because you were like, "Oh, you could come to the studio." And I was like, "Should
Oh
I?" But we had enough on the plate this week
my
that, like, my husband was out of town, and I was like, "I am gonna just double
Yeah,
down, focus on this." But in the future, we actually
in
have
the
another client with
future.
horses, and we saw her last year in person for the first time, and we'll see her again this year in Arizona when we go to Are you going to Spark, by the way?
Yes,
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so
be
we're gonna
there.
go and visit her and her horses one of the nights that we're there. So
Oh,
I'm glad that
fun.
you're coming. Then we can see each other again. That's where we met. Fun fact was at
Yes.
Spark. We were in the hallway, and I just remember. I don't know if I was just in a certain mood or if you brought that out in me, but I was just like almost quizzing you of like this or that, like denim or linen, or I don't know exactly like what the conversation was, but it was just like it was like we'd already met and we're just having like a remind me your favorite color kind of a conversation. And you were just like running with me and it was a great time. And then I remember following you on Instagram after that and thinking, whoa, okay, she was really cool and relatable and like warm in person. But then to see your work, I was like, okay, this is someone that we need to bring to our clients because she's not just visually talented, but I guess like connectively talented and you see
Mm-mm.
people and you're passionate. And there's something about being able to do that and bring that to the table, even though you've been like, this isn't your first rodeo. This has been a long time in the making. And to still have the curiosity and the care, that was something where I was like, okay, we need to have some shared clients because I want them to benefit from her.
Thank you. Man, I'm so glad we did meet up there because you have just served my people so beautifully since then. I was telling someone recently, they had to work with you because I've never gotten a delivery of copy that has been so incredibly structured and
Mm.
supportive and strategic, and, like, I know exactly where everything has to go and why in the final web design, and just it's such an incredible blend of, yeah, that story, strategy, art, support for people. Mm, so grateful for you guys.
It's so fun too for me to like compare like our current documents that we deliver versus like the first few that
Oh my
we
god.
delivered. It's it's interesting, but I'm also like, oh, it's we had a similar like intention and structure. It's just easier to see
Yes.
now from someone who's not in that space. So yeah, I have a lot of fun doing some like before and afters with my own business. Like, wow, we used to do that. Like
Oh my god. The first website project I ever did was in 2012, and, like, weirdly, I'm embarrassed that I won a national award for it because the website itself was not great, but the connection and the story and strategy behind it was what I think made it really shine and whatnot. But the point of that is they came back to me this year saying, "We wanna refresh this website. Here are our goals." And it was fun to, revisit that first one and come full circle, but also the terror of having to look at it again because 2012 was a different time, and Amy never having built a website before was a very different girl.
But
So
still,
yeah.
like, that they waited this like, have they not really touched it in the last
No, it
however many
looks
years?
it looks almost identical to a 2012 Weebly website, if you know the Weebly
Mhm.
platform.
I think my first portfolio
Wow.
was, on Weebly.
Oh my
Okay,
god,
but the
yeah.
fact that like, lasted that long, they probably squeezed a little too much juice out of that,
Yes.
but the fact that it
Yeah.
lasted that long and then they come back to you, I'll have to pull up the numbers, but we've, I think, had our highest percentage of projects this year be repeat client projects,
Oh,
and it's
love.
kind of that sweet spot of like, some of them are still ranking, like the SEO work that we did 3 years ago, like, they're on page 1 to this day, but maybe, like, their process changed, maybe some of them, like, are moving, and so they're coming back and they're
Mhm.
asking for help, and same as you, like, there's things that we see where we're like, "Okay, we would do that differently now," but it's also, like, in that time and with those trends, that was still, like, the best of the time, and of course, now, like,
Yeah,
we have 3 more years of experience to bring to the table or 5 more years depending,
yeah,
on the client, so it's interesting, but it's also really powerful to me and such a testament to, like, okay, wow, like, you've grown and that impacted you and helped you grow your business to the point that now it's time for, like, the next 5, 10 years of planning and business strategy, and let's work together again on that. We had one client who, when we first met, she was running the business, he was working part-time. It was a really, like, humble, not a great job, like, the kind of role that just no one wants to do, right? And they hired us, we wrote their copy. They ended up booking their like, a wedding photography company. They ended up booking, like, 60, 65 weddings, maybe even more. I don't know that they told me the full truth. Like, they booked, like, too many. They had too many weddings that first year, and then they kept coming back to us, like, 2 years later, they would say, "Okay, we've done the whole churn and burn and everything. Let's get to this next step. Let's book less weddings at a higher rate." And so then we worked again on updating their copy. And then a couple years after that, they were like, "Okay, we're gonna open, like, a separate, like, cinematography company, and we need help with the SEO and the copywriting there." We've done their canned emails, we've done their, like, messaging guide, client proposals, and every time they've come back and they've needed more because it gave them more of what they were looking for with their business, and it's one of my favorite stories, and kind of to circle back to, I guess, like, the humanity of it, we ended up both sharing and, like, going through, like, a really difficult time in both of our personal lives, with cancer and family and things of that nature, and so not only was it a client success story, but it ended up being, like, someone that I could just, like, talk to and be honest about the situation of, like, when you're supporting someone going through chemotherapy and then grief, to be able to have, like, a client who then becomes, like, a friend and, like, a supportive channel for that, but vice versa, like, she was asking me for advice when, like, she had a family member start going through that, so that's my long story of, I don't know, just why it matters and the kind of things that you don't want, but that end up just helping this life feel more whole.
ugh, yeah. I know, and if you stripped away all the metrics and the algorithms and wanting to rank and wanting to have your copy done, what really would you still want your writing to do for people?
Hmm. I mean, if we take, like, the whole business ROI out of it, I think it would just be, like, honor and document them, right? A lot of we work with a lot of photographers, and their whole point is to have this, like, legacy and have these memories, and I think a lot of times people struggle to put words to that, so to have truly different and unique language that, like, something that they could, like, print out and, be like, "Okay, this was, like, a time in my life, and this is what I was doing," in a way to really honor them, and sometimes one thing that we ask our clients is like, if you close your business down tomorrow, like what would people miss about you? So it's almost kind of like being able to describe and like encapsulate that. Like, what's the impact that you're making? How can we put words to that? And for them to be able to just feel connected and proud, I think are the two things that stand out.
Ah, hell yeah, what a beautiful question. Hmm. Well, thank you so much for sharing so much of your story and Salted Pages ethos and the way you serve your people. Does anything feel left unsaid today? Left unwritten?
I think just circling back to like there is no right answer, and whatever tools you want to use that like help you enjoy your life. It's one of those things where it's a mix of living for today while preparing for the future. Like we don't know how long of a life or a business that like we'll get to have here. And so it's just one of those things where you're just balancing, are you enjoying the now but doing the things you need to have that longevity and success in the future? And I think with like what we're trying to do with Salted Pages is have something that has that longevity component. It has the lasting quality to it. It's not just like the quick or the short or the easy, but it's the intentional and the meaningful, and being willing to admit that there's no right answer, but sometimes you can find something that works for you in this moment.
Yeah. I
I'll leave
feel
it at
it in
that.
everything you do, so thank you for bringing
Oh,
that to the world.
thank you. We sometimes we pour too much heart and soul into it. But
It is a slippery
I'm here
slope.
like, oh, here you go. Take me.
Take my life, my love. It's all poured into this project.
Like my husband's gone. He's at work anyways. He's in Dublin or Brussels or somewhere. And I'm here. I'll give you everything.
Relatable. Oh, well, thank you so much, Lauren. This has been so fun.
Oh, honestly, I always enjoy talking to you and hearing your stories and learning from you. So if I were to have a podcast, I would have you on there every week, probably just because you and I could really, really dive deep. So thank you for giving me the chance to come and share.
The Stories That Form Us is a production of Unbridled Form, where I serve intimate, artistic brands like boudoir, maternity, wedding, and fine artists through story-led branding and web design. If you're in a season of exploring the stories that form you, I invite you to download the free brand storytelling guide at unbridledform.com/storytelling. See what it reveals for you and where it might lead you next. You'll find the link in the show notes. See you next time.